Have you ever stayed with somebody who cheated? If so, are you still together? Or how did it finally end? I found out she was cheating on me. I asked if she would stop. She said yes. We continued to date for a year. Then I found out she was cheating on me again with a few guys, so we broke up. She now stalks me 3 years after the final breakup and is supposedly depressed that I left her. Her family and friends think I abused her when really I was being her emotional punching bag. This exact same thing happened to me. The family and friends part 100%. I'm a DJ and I ended up working a wedding, and surprisingly enough, some of her family was there. I knew she said stuff about me to them and her friends, but I didn't know the full extent. Turns out she told her family I'm a rage addict with a baby fetish and I abused the heck out of her. We went on a break, got back together, moved in with each other, and she proceeded to frick guys on my bed while I was at work for about a year. The truth came out when she broke up with me because it wasn't working out. She now has a child with the one of the guys she cheated on me with. They both have trackers on each other's phones because they can't trust each other. I find it amusing and know that the baby daddy constantly cheats on her. Karma sabi. I did, but it completely changed my attitude toward them. Anything and everything they did annoyed me. No patience. I wasn't sexually attracted anymore. The act just felt like a chore. And no matter how hard I tried, I never fully regained trust. It really ended after I found more evidence of cheating for the third time and decided to leave. Yep, that's exactly what I felt. Knew when the trust was lost, the relationship was over. I felt used. Like I was a safe for the marrying type and not the fun guy hipsters YOLO type. Frick you, Dan. I did. He never confessed to it and still won't to this day. We were together for 2 years and he was the first guy I slept with, and because of that reason alone I thought it was worth fighting for. He was abusive and getting out was the best thing that ever happened to me. 5 years later and he still obsessively texts me. Block that crap. I did. Until I found out the number was much higher than I was initially told. So I got the heck out of there. Fast forward 4 years. She's now best friends with my f-king wife. Not a good sign, bruv. Don't talk much about my personal life on Reddit, but here goes I guess. About 8 months ago, my girlfriend of 4 years admitted to having sex with a co-worker for the past year. I was absolutely devastated. I asked her if she could stay somewhere else for a couple nights, which she understood and agreed to. I sat and cried and stewed. Too embarrassed to tell friends or family, just wanting her to knock on the door, come in and tell me everything would be alright, to hold me, to help me pick up the pieces of my broken heart that she ripped in half. I managed to convince myself that it was my fault. If I was a better boyfriend, she wouldn't have felt the need to look somewhere else, so I apologized to her and begged her to come back. It ended 3 months later. I was constantly paranoid that she was out with someone else. I would call text her constantly and eventually had a breakdown when she wouldn't respond. I was with my best friend at the time and ended up tearfully confessing all to him. He basically told me to check myself and that I was being a complete idiot about it all, but in nicer terms. The moment of clarity that followed is indescribable. A thick cloud of fog cleared. My confidence came back and I was me again. I ended it with her when she walked in the door that night. When she cried, I felt nothing. Told her I had no sympathy and maybe she would find some with one of her other boyfriends. I got over it fairly quickly, but it still sucks a lot because I have a hard time finding motivation to go out and meet new people. So my life is a pretty depressing routine of work, video games, sleep, repeat, but I'm sure one day I'll find someone who truly cares. PS. It felt really good to actually type this out. Dude, that's me right now. All of it. The me apologizing for her cheating and begging her to stay and whatnot. I'm currently in the I should break it off because I can do better, but I'm scared. I hope that I'll get past this soon because this is getting so freaking old. The me feeling like crap. I finally confirmed my ex had been cheating on me after months of him gaslighting me and wrecking my self-esteem. He begged me to forgive him and started going all out to please me. Expensive dinners, gifts, trips. I stayed, but I knew deep down I didn't want to end up with someone like him. I felt ashamed for staying with him and being too weak to walk away. After a few months, I caught him in another lie and I was so numb that I could barely react. I told him I didn't care because I didn't love him anymore. He moved out a week later. I had become very codependent, so being alone was rough. After a few months of destructive behavior, I decided I needed to change my situation and move to a city 2,500 miles away. It was scary, but I have honestly never been happier. I feel like myself again. And now I know to trust my gut when I see red flags in people. I can't see myself ever putting up with mistreatment like that again. I think you've come out of a mess like this with the best possible attitude. A lot of people won't learn from mistakes or they'll blame themselves for somebody else's despicable behavior. I'll just say this. Trust is like a piece of paper. Once you crumple it up you can certainly flatten it back out, but it will never be how it was before. I feel like that sounds like a Linkin Park lyric. He was one of those nice guys who acted all sweet and nice to the outside world, and he had a very angelic looking face to match. He looked like the less attractive Hemsworth brother. We were together for some years, but by the end of it, our relationship was a mess. I had several friends tell me that they witnessed him on dates. Sometimes he wouldn't come home at night. He was extremely secretive about his phone, etc. But because he would always angrily deny cheating and insist that I was paranoid, I never quite accepted that he had cheated. Very early one weekend morning I was awoken by a text from a girl that he worked with, which was something along the lines of "I'm at workplace. Why don't you come over and the two of us can clean up the office alone together, tee-hee." It wasn't exactly conclusive evidence, but I was furious. Now, this coworker had always been sickeningly sweet to my face, but she had made it clear for a long time that she was actively pursuing my boyfriend. Things like asking him to help her with Tinder and going into graphic detail about her love life. She once offered to go to a yoga class with me, and later bailed by claiming to be busy. Then while I was at yoga class, she asked my boyfriend to go out for drinks with her. I'd had enough of her at that point, so I was rude to her the next time I saw her. The boyfriend turned on me and told me that I was totally out of line. The boyfriend broke up with me a short while later to pursue someone else, which didn't work out. Given that he got his mates to stalk me through social media, I suspect he thought that I would end up sad and lonely, and was pleased to learn that I met someone great, my husband, not long after the split. When the boyfriend and I split, I felt relieved, because putting up with his cheating had made me feel so alone for years. I learned that once the trust has gone, you're only making it worse for yourself by staying in the relationship. To anyone who is with a cheating partner, you know the burden of not trusting them. You know what it's like to want to check their phone, and hate yourself at the same time for wanting to do it. There's only one way to free yourself of that burden. You can't make the other person be trustworthy, but you can break up with them and make a better life for yourself. I can't even imagine wanting to check my husband's phone or having to keep tabs on his whereabouts. I trust him 100%, and that's the most amazing feeling. We both stepped out, but that was 9 years ago and we are still together. Glad we were able to work through it and deal with the root issues. Whoa, rarely have I ever heard of it working out. Glad you were able to work through it and I hope all is well. I was with a person for 2 years. Unfortunately, we were in a long distance relationship for most of it as I moved to another country after 10 months of being together. When I moved, we were in a very weird situations of splitting up and be together again, which continued until the end, which she was making out with different guys when we broke up. Through this whole times I was in the worst psychological condition of my life so far, as I had lost everything and had no one except my parents to help me, and she wasn't making things better. At the end, she called me and told me that now she is in a relationship with my best friend. This was the worst feeling that I've ever felt. I felt betrayed from the two persons that I loved the most after my parents. Now, 1 year later, I have completely cut any kind of contact with those two and I've ignored every single message that they sent me. I can say that it still hurts, but I feel better that I've completely removed two toxic people from my life. Sorry for any grammar mistake. English is clearly not my first language. Feel free to ask questions. Completely unrelated. Your English is absolute amazing. You speak it better than I do. Don't feel like you need to apologize. My husband had an emotional affair while I was pregnant with our first. I discovered it right before giving birth, after I had left my company to become a stay-at-home mother. I told him that I wanted a year to decide to stay married or not. I knew I wasn't in the best emotional physical state to decide, and I also knew he'd say anything in the moment to convince me to stay. So we spent 1 year together learning how to adjust to parenthood while simultaneously re-evaluating our lives and relationship. We went to marriage counseling. He went to individual counseling. We relearned how to actually communicate honestly, how to say things that would hurt but at least were real. We realized that we loved each other dearly, but we weren't in love with our relationship marriage. So we changed it. We rolled up our sleeves and reinvented our world. It's been about 9 years since deciding to stay after that year of introspection. We've not dealt with infidelity since and are genuinely happy in our marriage. I'm glad I gave us the time and opportunity to fix things. I'm glad he's held up to his promise to make things right. And we're that odd couple who are actually in a healthy marriage after an affair. But holy crap, it took a lot of work to get to this place. We rolled up our sleeves and reinvented our world. Dang, that's beautiful. A man I loved left me because he was convinced I'd cheated on him. Low self-esteem coupled with an increase in weak consumption, aka fast track to paranoia, led him to this conclusion, and I couldn't shake him from it. I can wholeheartedly say that I did not for 1 minute of our relationship consider or want to cheat. I would have married him. But he couldn't be with a cheat and a liar. Sucked then, and it seems to suck more and more every year that goes by. I dated a guy who cheated on me and I ended it immediately, but tried to date him again about 4 years later. He was convinced I would cheat on him for revenge and was so jealous all the time. It only lasted a few months before I ended it again and I completely cut him out of my life. He broke my heart twice, but never again. She cheated on me junior year of college. I broke up with her. 2 years later, we still had the same friend group. Both of us got drunk at a party and hooked up again. We made it another year before she cheated again and I ended it for good. Soon after, I moved so I never had to see her again. Morals of the story: if they cheated to get with you, they'll cheat on you. If they cheated before without consequence, they'll learn they can cheat again, no matter how good a match or how much either loves the other. Once a cheater, always a cheater. We together about 4 years at the time. Lived together. I worked an extra 20 hours a week so we could afford for her to finish her practicum. Weird things started to happen. First was the odd autocorrect in Google search to a dating site. Said it was her sister. Believed her. Then randomly hours of internet history would completely disappear every time I wasn't there. Even if I went to the grocery store. Decided to take a really big risky step and install a keylogger. Had it on for not even a day and found out she was making plans on a dating site. Messaging her co-worker about how she cheated on me before and would love to with him. I actually didn't say anything to her. I kept quiet because I loved her and wanted to try to be better for her. Felt I would never meet anyone as good as her, and I loved her more than life itself. I kept quiet for a few months till it ate me up inside and I was a shell of who I was. I kept looking at the keylogger and found she was basically sleeping with 3 different people. Instead of being mature, I started to flirt with someone online. I cheated. I became the worst version of me. She found out. I told her a tenth of what I knew and I became the bad guy. We ended up hanging out all the time within 3 months. Arguing and angry, then not talk for a few weeks. Every argument I would spill a bot core about what I knew. Did that for about 3 more years. Then one day I got tired of all the games and drama. Sat her down. Told her I was madly in love with her. Forever and always. And I'm tired of us going back and forth. Told her let's make a choice. She said okay. That she loved me also. We went for dinner. Had sex. And the next day went to work happier than I had been in years. She then texted me at noon saying she was leaving the city to move in with a married man who had her as a side piece. He was going to get a divorce and be with her. She said she just wanted a hookup so went along with everything. Blocked me, and the one time I saw her in person back in the city she pretended I didn't exist. This was a roller coaster of emotions. Hopefully things got better for you. Yes. He actually cheated on me with my cousin at my brother's wedding but said it was my fault because I got too drunk. I was young. Needless to say, it didn't work out. I found someone who treats me awesome. My ex publicly makes fun of his current girlfriend on Facebook for getting fat. I think it worked out for the best. I found someone who treats me awesome. He publicly makes fun of his current girlfriend on Facebook for getting fat. This doesn't sound like much of an upgrade, not gonna lie. I dated a narcissist and master manipulator. Originally I was not interested in an exclusive relationship with him. We were both in college and he had more years to go than I did. He cried. I caved and our relationship began. Red flag. 8 months into the relationship I was blindsided by accidentally finding out he was cheating. She called 1 AM on a Saturday night and was not a name I had not recognized. I woke him up after the initial shakes from shock subsided. He sobbed and cried hysterically begging me not to leave. I took off as soon as he fell back asleep and the hysterical bastard tracked me down the next morning. Insisted on not leaving me alone until we were back together. Fast forward to our 1-year anniversary of just dating. Something I don't really celebrate, but he does. Insisted we buy each other rings. I was a full-time grad student only employed part-time at a low wage. In debt and about to begin an 8-month mandatory and paid full-time internship. He was the son of a multimillionaire, didn't work, undergrad student in a frilly arts degree and had everything paid for including getting extra money from mommy from her personal allowance whenever there is something more he wanted. He insisted I had to buy him a ring with what little money I had. Fast forward a month after those 1-year commitment rings he started cheating again, except this time it was multiple females. At one point during the dragged out breakup he wanted an open relationship, except only open on his side. It ended permanently. TL. DR. Manipulative narcissist rich kid who would cry to get his way cheated, then cheated again a lot more ending in a permanent breakup. I dated a crybaby rich kid cheater too. He got me every time with the crying because I really cared for him. Funny looking back how fast those tears dried up after he got what he wanted. No, there's no way I'd stay with my girlfriend if she cheated on me. Last girl I dated cheated on me. We had only been dating for about 6 months, and it felt absolutely terrible for a long time. I couldn't stay with somebody willing to do that to me. I stayed after being together 4 years. She cheated on me when we were engaged, but I tried to make it work. We lasted 4 more years and she cheated again. LPT. Don't stick with someone that cheats. It takes a certain kind of personality to do that to someone, and they'll never change. Agreed. Indeed I have. By 2 different people. I was heartbroken both times, and both of them cheated on me on more than one occasion. I thought it was me and I tried desperately to make each of them stay. Heartbroken. Why fly when they left me fool I was. I know. We both cheated in a long distance relationship. We're crappy people for doing it, but it happened nonetheless. We stayed together for a while after. Our sex got more and more passionate until we broke up due to things relating to the cheating. After we broke up however we had the most frenzied sex I've ever had. We always had a lot of sexual tension. I did, and we have a baby on the way. I don't know why I stayed. Eventually I cheated too. The whole relationship is toxic. I am working on leaving on good terms for our daughter. Paternity test. Yes, my now husband cheated on me when we were only dating. At first we broke up but then ultimately we worked through it and a few years later got married. Still going strong. It took a long time to get to a point where I could trust him again, but I trust him more than anyone else in the world now. My first GF left her BF for me. I felt it was okay because he cheated on her 7 times and she never had the heart to break up with him. I also supported her in a hard time while he didn't. She left me a year and a half later for someone else and had the audacity to tell me that she and her were having sex. She was also very religious. We dated for a total of almost 5 years. After about 3 years, he started working with this married woman who was a figure competitor who I thought at the time was pretty. They started off friendly enough, but over time, I forget what tipped me off. They started being too friendly. I politely approached the subject and said, "Hey, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with this behavior. Do you mind cooling it off with her?" To which he agreed. I forget the specifics, but over time it just got worse. He got possessive of his phone. I couldn't even touch it to move it if I wanted to put a glass of water there. He would turn the phone away from me and was always on it. She would upload photos of him on social media or comment on all his stuff. She came to his birthday party wearing a bodysuit and jeans which was completely backless and low cut in front. She has fake tea. After that party is when things happened. He'd constantly text her when we were together. He knew all the intricate details of her miserable marriage. She also has 2 kids and would frequently discuss them and her. They would spend their time together at work all day. I know a lot is still hidden from me, but things that occurred during this 2-year emotional affair in which he fell in love with her, lied to me, and subsequently started dating her a year after we ended things. His sister told me when she would visit him at work his car would have a car seat in it. Confronted later, he told me he would take her kids for food ice cream. I never knew. His sister also told me one night she drove 30+ minutes to come to his parents' house, where he lived, to make food. His dad kicked her out once someone realized she was there because it wasn't right. They were touchy-feeling together, always. The one time I saw his phone she was the background photo. She put it on my screen he said, but I was never allowed within inches of his phone for my dear life. He uploaded a birthday photo for her saying happy birthday to my best friend. He never uploaded any photos of us, citing social media was stupid. I had a breakdown at work and called him about. He informed me he was on his way to her birthday party that he purposely did not inform me of or invite me to buy her wishes. He liked all of her Instagram photos except ones with her husband in them. There's tons more, but basically I held on and tried to embrace her if they truly were just best friends. I hung out with her, and he would get insanely jealous mad. Finally he cited he didn't know himself and needed time to figure himself out. The worst time of my life, and 3 years later here I am still trying to deal with losing him. You don't need that crap. Work on being the best version of yourself that you can be and everything will work out in the end. Stayed for 15 years. Suspicious for all of them because he never acted normal again. Finally couldn't take the creepy underlying unanswered questions and left. Best decision I've ever made. If you have any questions about anything and do not get solid answers, run. I assure you, it's not you, it's him/her. I got back with a guy who cheated on me. Last I heard of him he didn't care I was being sexually abused for 3 years because she's polyamorous anyways, right? I'm not with him anymore. Just found out 2 weeks ago that my boyfriend of 5.5 years has been sleeping with other girls behind my back. He was also receiving and sending them naked pictures regularly. We had been living together for 2 years at this point. Buckle in, folks. I started travel nursing back in November and things between us seemed to be going just fine. We had multiple talks about what this meant and that it was only for a limited time. We agreed. Fast forward to January and he starts getting really weird about his phone. Constantly needs to know where it is and won't let me really touch it. I knew something was up and started investigating. He had been texting one of his friend's exes and it definitely made me uncomfortable. I confronted him and he apologized and said he wouldn't do it anymore. He continues to stay weird about his phone. I have a bunch of days in a row of work coming up so we wouldn't see each other for about 2 weeks. Literally right as I'm about to leave I see a girl's name pop up on his phone and I totally shut down. I grab the dog and run out of the apartment back to where my current assignment was. He texts me and acts like nothing just happened. At this point I know I have no choice but to search his texts. Couple weeks later I drive to him hometown because that's where he went for the weekend. Friday night and totally catch him texting and snapchatting this same girl. I shut down again and completely ignore him for the rest of the night. The next day I start watching Netflix in his laptop where sure enough I notice his iMessage is linked to his laptop. He's never made this mistake before. I start digging. Took more than 5 minutes to find an upsetting amount of naked pictures from both random girls and himself. I immediately confront him and he says nothing to me. Not a dang word. I start packing all my crap to drive back home and he follows me downstairs continuing not to talk. I'm devastated. 5 years and I don't get so much as an explanation. I'm getting ready to pull out when his mom stops me. She convinced me to stay and try to work it out. I decide to continue to dig to make sure I know the full truth. Find out he's been sleeping with other people. He admits it and doesn't say anything else to me. I moved out last weekend and haven't heard a word from him. It's like I didn't even know the person I was living with. Every day is a struggle and I'm doing everything in my power to try to be okay again. We lived together and he was a freaking devastated mess when I found out. He cheated like a month into the relationship and the dumbass said he was so drunk he thought it was a dream. Obvious he knew he was an idiot and he wouldn't do it again. Still don't think he would have. Told him I'd try, and I did. Eventually he was no longer the man I thought I loved and trusted. It stopped being fun. We stopped being friends. Went home every night thinking today's the night I tell him I'm done. Didn't heard that he kept accusing me of cheating. Probably trying to deflect his guilt and hoping I would get back at him. After dragging it out for a year, maybe more, I was done. Messy breakup. Ended up moving. Basically paying him off and changing my number. Honestly though, we would have grown apart in the end. Wanted different things, had different goals, got comfortable, were young, yada, 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 not meant to be. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.